A handsome young man returns a key ring to a couple of students and a dog to its owner. On the way to school, the same young man passes a playground and finds an adult magazine lying on the ground. The young man debates whether to read it or not, as he is tempted to read it, but fears that someone will discover him as he picks up the magazine. When it seems that fate is going to choose for him, something strange happens around him, and two posters with options appear in front of him. The options force him to choose between eating the magazine or pressing it to his face and smelling it. When the young man argues that neither option is acceptable, the signs become more aggressive, and he begins to suffer headaches. No longer able to bear the pain, our protagonist decides to carry out the second option and smells the magazine he found lying in a square. Thus the pain subsides, and the posters disappear, returning everything to normal, although he is publicly humiliated when some children see him smelling the magazine. The young man leaves, and we learn that our protagonist suffers from a curse called absolute choices, which forces him at random moments to choose between two options that appear in the form of posters in front of his eyes, no matter how absurd they seem. A summary of the situation tells us how important decisions are in shaping the world as we know it. All beings sooner or later must make a decision, starting from different options. Once the decision is made, the other options disappear, and the world continues in its natural course. The most important people in history have had to choose between different options. Some were relevant, some were positive, but all had to be taken. Back to our story. Kanade, our protagonist, heads to school, but not before chatting with his loving next-door neighbor. In the classroom, Kanade converses with his classmate Yukihira, who constantly calls him a worm. When the young man asks her the reason behind the offense, she clarifies that she read that a celebration about butterflies is coming up, so she decided to make a joke with the term worm. Kanade doesn't get the joke, but she knows her partner is like that, so she doesn't mind. However, new options appear in front of our protagonist's eyes, so she asks her friend to touch her breasts. Yukihira has no problem, although she doesn't like that he uses the term breasts instead of boobs, so she refuses. All this while the rest of her companions look down on our hero. Yukihira finally refuses to touch her friend, but what the choices meant was that he should touch her breasts, which he does. Suddenly, another classmate appears climbing out of the classroom window. The girl is Yuuji, a young woman from a well-to-do family who likes to invent objects and uses her classmates as test subjects. The rest of the class sees Kanade and her friends as part of the school's loser group, which doesn't get any better when again the choices cause our hero to take off his shirt and run around the classroom shirtless. While doing this, Kanade runs into a girl, who is actually his teacher, who takes him to an orientation room for detention. Inside the classroom, the teacher asks him the details of the choice, thus revealing to us that she is aware of our hero's predicament and helps cover for him. The school day ends, and as we have all guessed, it is an exhausting task for our hero, dealing with the curse as well as his classmates. At home, life is no easier, and the choices force him to embrace his neighbor. When the day seems to come to an end, other options appear, and because of our protagonist's choice, a beautiful young woman falls from the sky on top of him. The next day, the young girl wakes up on Kanade's couch. Our hero is not comfortable with the situation, and less with the idea that she seems to know him, and asks for explanations, and tells her not to get too comfortable, but the girl replies that she is hungry. During breakfast, the young girl reveals that she has amnesia, so she does not remember her name, so for the time being, she is baptized as Chocolate, due to her fondness for the chocolate she stole from our hero. Chocolate tells our protagonist that his mission is to help him eliminate his curse of absolute decisions. Excited by the idea of freeing himself from the curse, Kanade asks Chocolate the details to achieve the goal, but the young woman does not know the answer, and tells him that the one who really knows the answer is none other than God. Suddenly, Kanade's phone rings, and it is God who is calling him. When Kanade answers the phone, he finds it hard to believe that the caller is God, and thinks it's really a joke, so an offended God demonstrates his powers by turning our hero into a girl. Having proved his point, God gives Kanade two options: continue to turn into a girl for the rest of his life, or stand on his hands and shout the name of his favorite historical figure. Kanade chooses the second option and his body returns to normal. God explains to our hero that in the next few days he will be receiving some missions that he will have to carry out, and in this way he will be able to eliminate the curse. However, he cannot give him too many details, since he does not know very well how it works. When Kanade complains about not knowing about the curse, God tells him that he is a new god since the old god retired and did not leave him much information to work with. God informs him that Chocolate is there to help him, and before cutting off he makes it clear that if he fails even one of the missions, he must suffer the curse for the rest of his life. Chocolate turns out to be of no help whatsoever, since due to his amnesia, he knows nothing about the missions, but only some general information, such as the fact that he can't leave until our hero completes them. Despite not wanting Chocolate to stay, the other option is for him to be the one to leave his own home, so Kanade accepts his new housemate. When our proto arrives at school, he receives a text message from God, who gives him his first mission to make his friend Yukihira laugh from the bottom of her heart. Before starting the mission, Kanade already gives himself up for defeat, due to the fact that he was never able to get a smile out of his friend's heart, and to make matters worse, the options keep coming up, humiliating him in front of the rest of the class, by having to scream like a pig on the teacher's desk. This angers Yukihira, who considers that our hero is stealing her style of humor, so she decides to give him a trial in class. Since these people apparently don't have real classes, her classmates agree, with Yuuji officiating as judge. The teacher interrupts the trial and takes Kanade to the orientation room, where she again covers our hero, and it is revealed that she also suffered from the curse, but is forbidden to reveal to the young man how to eliminate it, although she warns him to take the mission seriously. Chocolate tries to help Kanade by giving him a book with instructions on how to tickle, but the young man says it won't work. The next day, Kanade must make her friend laugh, as it is the deadline to fulfill her mission, but despite her efforts, she can't get a smile out of her friend. Yukihira leaves and Kanade follows her to the school terrace, where she discovers her friend crying. On the school terrace, Yukihira hits Kanade when she discovers that the young man was spying on her. When he wakes up, Kanade apologizes to her friend and offers her a banana that Chocolate had given her the day before. However, the banana is overripe and falls apart in our prota's hand. He tries to look for the book with the tickling instructions without success, and Yukihira retreats. Desperate, Kanade runs to meet her only to slip on the banana peel, causing her friend to laugh, and thus completing the first mission. The next day, Kanade wakes up only to find Chocolate sleeping next to him, talking in her sleep. Our hero wakes her up and receives another mission from God, who this time asks him to look at the underwear of his classmate Yawaka's Kanagi. At school, Kanade is reunited with Yukihira, who apologizes for laughing at him, and crosses paths with Yuuji, who is accompanied by Yawaka's, an awkward young girl who happens to be one of the school's most popular students and the target of his new mission. While conversing with Yawaka's, Kanade, compelled by the appearance of two options, directly asks the young woman to show him her underwear, for which he is beaten up by the young woman's fan club. In the classroom, while recovering from the beating, Kanade explains to Yuuji that she needs to see her friend's underwear, and assures her that it is not for any indecent reason. The two converse, when Yawaka's asks to speak to our Pertoa in private, and tells him that although she is not angry, she has decided that her underwear will only be seen by the person she loves. Kanade understands the situation, but because of the choices, he insists on seeing them, so he is again attacked by Yawaka's bodyguard. After the beating, Yuuji approaches the defeated Kanade and offers to help him in his mission, just for the sake of doing something fun. At home, Kanade talks to Chocolate, who doesn't understand the concept of personal space, apparently, and tells him that Yuuji's plan is to implement it by being close to Yawaka's, since the young woman is prone to falling on the floor constantly, so it's only a matter of time before he can see the young woman's underwear in one of those falls. The next day, Kanade, Yuuji, and Yawaka's go for a walk, and our hero not only has to deal with the humiliation of the options, he also has a hard time completing his mission, because although it is true, Yawaka's is constantly falling to the floor, there is always an external factor that prevents our carrier from seeing his companion's underwear. During a break, Kanade and Yawaka's are left alone and the young woman falls asleep, which the young man sees as an opportunity to lift her skirt, which suddenly becomes two options, to do it or not, and although for a moment he hesitates, he prefers not to do it, since he feels guilty for having spent the afternoon with the sweet young woman only with the intention of seeing her underwear. Yawaka's wakes up and suddenly a thief tries to catch them, only to be hit by Yuuji, who performs a flying kick, exposing his underwear that our hero can see. Suddenly, Kanade receives a call from God, who explains that Yuuji's underwear is actually Yawaka's, due to a mix-up in a gift delivery, so the mission is complete. Kanade thanks her friend, who runs off feeling embarrassed for exposing her underwear to her friend. Chocolate joins Kanade's class, introducing herself as his study assistant. Knowing the girl's nature, the teacher allows it, and now Chocolate is just another student. Kanade is not happy and tries to get rid of his companion, only to receive rejection from the class, who has already grown fond of the girl. Two options appear in front of our young man. One orders him to create a harem where popular students will confess their love to him, and the other simply tells him that something good will happen. Surprised that this time both options are positive, our protagonist chooses the first one. Everyone in the class adores Chocolate, and they even worry when Yukihira jokingly says that the girl is at the mercy of a pervert, but since it's her who says it, nobody realizes it's a joke and they look at him badly again. Yuuji, on the other hand, is still embarrassed for exposing her underwear but solves it by wearing shorts under her skirt from now on. Later, Kanade's choice backfires when the harem of popular students at school who fall in love with him turns out to be male students who chase him around the school. Later, our protagonist recovers in the study hall with his teacher, reminding him that once everything returns to normal, people indirectly affected by the curse lose their memories, so the students won't remember being in love with him. The teacher also asks him about his relationship with Chocolate, wondering why he keeps her close if the girl has not been helpful so far. At home, Kanade feeds Chocolate sweets while conversing with God, who confesses that he is not in control of the missions or the options, and he also doesn't know who is responsible, information that his predecessor also didn't know. The next day, at school, the class is deciding on activities when Shishimori, one of the most popular students in the school, enters the class and asks to speak with Kanade. The teacher, who couldn't care less, gives permission, lest those kids accidentally learn something at school. Shishimori comes on behalf of the student council president, Sarako Kabayakun, to invite the 5 losers, which is the nickname for the least popular students in the school, a club to which our friends belong, to a student battle. Saira also shows up and invites Kanade, Yukihira, and Yuuji to the tournament, as well as another student we haven't met yet, and leaves an empty space for them to choose the 5th. Before leaving, Saira crosses paths with Chocolate and compliments her on her otherworldly beauty. The class returns to normal, and Kanade receives a new mission from God. All the girls participating in the student battle must tell him that they love him. At home, Kanade laments that besides needing to find a 5th member for his team of losers, he must also get the female contestants to say they love him. During his lamentations, he considers recruiting Chocolate for his team but changes his mind when he realizes the girl is too unstable. At school, a conversation with Chocolate gives Kanade an idea, as he deduces that the girls can say they love him without it being a declaration of love. Kanade tests this with Yuuji, asking her if she loves him as a person, to which she responds affirmatively, marking her name as achieved since the rules indeed allow it. Happy that the task won't be as difficult as he thought, our protagonist decides to try the same technique with Yukihira, but as always, his friend is too complicated and he can't get "I love you" out of her even with a lever. In the school corridors, Kanade reunites with an old childhood friend, the super affectionate Yuragi Hakaniwa, who treats him like a brother in front of Chocolate, forcing our hero to clarify that one of Yuragi's quirks is calling everyone big brother or big sister. Yuragi has been traveling the world with her family and has now settled back in Japan, but since she hasn't seen Kanade in a long time, she is unaware of his curse. Kanade, on the other hand, tries to get rid of his friend but without success. Kanade introduces Yuragi to the rest of his friends, who welcome her. He also decides to invite her to join the combat group, knowing that due to the affectionate nature of the girl, he has the "I love you" guaranteed. Kanade is right, and Yuragi tells him she loves him, leaving only Yukihira, who is stubbornly refusing to say those words to our protagonist. In the student council room, the 5 most popular students in school gather with the 5 least popular, except for one who missed the meeting. There, they decide that the 2 teams will compete in different themes individually, and the team with the most wins will win. The 2 groups agree, not without creating some animosities between some who get along well. Everything seems normal until a decision forces Kanade to declare in front of both groups that he will get all the women to say "I love you," further complicating his task. The next day, Kanade's friends seem to have forgotten about that insignificant slip-up, except for Yukihira, who leaves without a word, swearing she will never say those words. Alone in one of the hallways, Yukihira thinks about Kanade and all the women around him who love him and can't help feeling jealous. Continuing with his plan to get them to say they love him, Kanade decides to try his luck with Yawakaze and goes to her classroom to find her. There, Yawakaze's classmates disapprove of Kanade talking to her because rumors have spread that he forces Uragi to treat him like an older brother, which is a highly frowned upon behavior. Yawakaze talks to Kanade, who asks her a favor and explains that the conversation isn't about asking her to call him brother or show him her underwear but to ask for emotional support, which would be achieved if the girl tells him she loves him. However, when Yawakaze is about to say it, her fan club intervenes and takes Kanade to a secluded place where they beat him up. While lying on the ground, Yawakaze appears in front of Kanade and tells him she loves him before leaving. This annoys Kanade a bit, feeling guilty for manipulating her, but at least it's one name closer to victory, which reassures him, only to be beaten again by Yawakaze's fans. Already halfway to his goal, Kanade decides to try his luck with another popular student, Ayame Ricardo, whose large breasts have made her one of the favorites at school. Kanade talks to Ayame, but the girl wants nothing to do with him, let alone say she loves him, so she dismisses him from the cafeteria. Suddenly, the options play in favor of the boy as one reveals that Ayame's breasts are fake and threatens to reveal the truth. Frightened, Ayame confronts Kanade privately, who finally convinces her to tell him she loves him. Back in the classroom, Kanade and company discover that Yukihira is a fan of a children's character named Blanquisirdo and attends all the character's performances. Since the character belongs to Yuuji's parents' company, the girl allows Kanade to dress up as Blanquisirdo so that he can approach Yukihira and get her to say she loves him, even if she's saying it to the pig. Inside the Blanquisirdo costume, Kanade manages to spend the afternoon with Yukihira unknowingly, making her very happy, and he manages to get her to confess, saying she's afraid everyone will hate her true personality, especially his friend Kanade, whom she cares about a lot. She finally tells the pig she loves him, achieving Kanade's goal. However, two options appear in front of him: ask Yukihira to take off the costume, thus revealing his identity and humiliating her, or forget everything he just heard, along with his collection of adult photographs. Kanade thinks about it and finally chooses the second option, returning home with Yukihira's approval on his phone, but not knowing how he got it. The battle is approaching, and there are still no news about the fifth member of the team, the mysterious Karasu Yumashima. But while the group members wonder what to do, Karasu appears, wearing a strange mask. Karasu doesn't speak but immediately changes the order of the matches and disappears as mysteriously as he appeared. While looking for Karasu in the hallways, Kanade encounters Saira, the student council president, and the only woman missing from his list of I love yous. Kanade tries to trick Saira into saying I love you, but she says it with different words, not wanting to use the word love lightly, so Kanade gives up, needing to find another strategy. Saira tells him that if the losers win the battle, she will say the words he wants to hear. The big day arrives, and the welcome event for the new students begins, starting with the battle between the two groups of students. The first battle is between Saka and Uragi, and a random number decides the activity, which in this case is acting. Saka plays a young man bringing a fish home, earning the approval of the students. But Uragi acts like a jealous wife, and her performance is so believable that most of the students get scared. When Uragi's character kills Saka's character, the officials decide to suspend the play for its intensity, giving the victory to Uragi. The second match is a wrestling match between Yuuji and Yawakaze, and although the former has all the advantage, the clumsiness of the popular girl causes Yuuji to slip and lose the fight. The third round is starred by Ayame and Yukihira, facing off in a battle of nicknames. When Yukihira threatens to reveal Ayame's breast secret, she changes her mind and loses ground when her opponent nicknames her a pervert. Finally, the audience chooses that nickname as the most appropriate, giving Ayame the victory. The fourth battle is about to begin, but Karasu has disappeared, so the popular students will win by default. However, one of the popular students, Toya, decides he doesn't want to end the event so quickly and requests authorization for the non-popular students to recruit a replacement. The teacher, who isn't paying attention to anything, approves the idea, and Toya chooses Chocolate as Karasu's replacement. Toya and Chocolate compete in an insult contest, and although Chocolate's insults are strange and food-related, she still wins when Toya, the ladies' man, quits the fight, clarifying that he would never be able to insult a woman. With both teams tied, victory is in the hands of Kanade and Saira. The battle is a game of rock, paper, scissors that Kanade easily wins, so the non-popular students win the event, and Saira must say I love you to Kanade. However, the president publicly declares her love for our hero, angering the students even more. Something is wrong because despite Syra saying I love you to him, the mission has not been completed, and Kanade realizes that Chocolate was a member of the team. So he needs her to say it, but Syra catches him with a hug, so he has to shout at Chocolate to say it, which she does, further infuriating the Syra's actions have turned Kanade into public enemy number 1 at school, as everyone believes he's part of a love triangle involving the student council president and Chocolate, making him the target of his peers' wrath for supposedly toying with the hearts of the two sweet girls. Now, he has to constantly hide to avoid getting beaten up. In the classroom, things are equally awkward with his friends, who are jealous of his connection with Syra. It doesn't help that the president continues to call him darling in front of everyone at school. When Kanade confronts Syra, she asks him if he's ever been in love before, leaving him pondering as she walks away. Back in the classroom, our hero faces a new dilemma. Confronted with 3 options on how to interact with his friends, he chooses to hug Chocolate. She thanks him but asks that next time, he does it in private, a comment that's misinterpreted by everyone in the room, putting Kanade back in hot water. However, Chocolate steps up to defend Kanade from the class's anger. Surprisingly, she explains that the hug helped her regain her memory. They retreat to a more private spot to talk. On the school's rooftop, Chocolate reveals that she bumped her head that morning and began regaining her memories, which were fully restored by the hug. She apologizes for her previous behavior and promises to be more helpful from now on. Their conversation is cut short when Yukihira shows up, verbally attacking Kanade, but Chocolate interprets her words as declarations of love, causing the girl to storm off back to the classroom. At Kanade's house, Chocolate's improvement continues. She's now not only capable of complex conversations but also takes on cooking dinner. After dinner, Chocolate recounts the events that led her to Kanade's home and apologizes for not being more useful earlier. With everything laid out, they decide to start afresh. However, Chocolate seems to have developed romantic feelings for Kanade and tries to kiss. In his attempt to dodge the kiss, she ends up hitting her head again, reverting to her former self, with no memories of her recent changes. The next day at school, everything is back to normal. Syra gives our hero a prize for winning a school event, a trip for 5 to a water park, just as it seemed odd that we were nearing the end of the series without a water park, beach, or hot springs episode. Finally, after receiving the prize, Kanade is given another divine mission, to capture a photo of Yuuji crying at the water park. Yukihira hesitates to go to the water park, as she has complexes with her body. However, she is offended that Kanade does not insist on inviting her anymore, so she decides to go. On the way to the water park, Kanade wonders how she will make the always optimistic Yuuji cry, and remembers to have prepared, before leaving, an onion bomb that she will use as a last resort. Arriving at the park, different options appear in front of our hero and he chooses that at random moments the truth will come out of his mouth during his visit to the park. During his visit, our hero is bombarded by options, which combined with the option to tell the truth, put him in embarrassing and offensive situations, attacking his friends with truth bombs at the wrong time. While the girls are having fun, Yukihira used her ticket and went to the park on her own, but seeing the other girls, she feels intimidated, not helped by the presence of the popular students who also went to the park. For some reason, Syra seems to know more than she seems to, and with her friends they try to control the chaos that Kanade's friends have unleashed in the park, which leads to different confusions. However, Kanade is too busy with his mission to deal with his friends, and tries to make Yuuji cry without much success. Finally, the young man resorts to onion extract, loading a water pistol with the liquid, but when he tries to shoot his friend, 2 options appear in front of him, forcing him to shoot himself, as the mission does not accept the boy cheating. Kanade accidentally shoots himself in the nose with the onion-loaded water, which unexpectedly makes Yuuji burst into laughter. The group decides to try a haunted attraction next, hoping the fright might make Yuuji cry. Inside, the monsters scare Yuuji to the verge of tears, but before Kanade can snap a picture, she snatches the camera from him and throws it at one of the fake monsters, destroying it before running off. Kanade catches up with Yuuji, who begs him to carry her and help her navigate out of the maze. Faced with 2 choices, one path would make her cry long enough to complete his mission, while the other would stop her tears as soon as they exit. Despite being tempted by the first option, seeing his friend in distress, Kanade chooses the latter, putting her comfort over the mission. Meanwhile, Chocolate and Yuragi are eating ice cream when Syra says something that triggers Chocolate's memory. Elsewhere, Yuuji regains her composure and starts crying tears of joy. Saira appears with a camera and tells Kanade it's his chance to complete the mission. He takes the picture, fulfilling his task. From a distance, Chocolate watches the entire scene and runs away in tears. Kanade goes to tell Chocolate that the mission is completed but notices that she seems different and sad, then she disappears into the crowd. Trying to understand what's happening, Kanade is approached by Saira, who reveals she knows about the curse and gives him a clue on how to break it. She asks him again if he has ever been in love. Chocolate, Yukihira, and Yuuji gather, and Chocolate admits her jealousy of their relationships with Kanade, then runs off, only to be found by Kanade. She hugs him in front of the girls, and suddenly, 4 options appear before him. The first 3 force a choice among his friends, and the 4th ominously states that something will happen. Despite his past experience that such vague options usually lead to trouble, Kanade decides not to make choices that hurt his friends and picks the 4th option. His teacher appears, and Kanade asks if she ever chose the something will happen option. She is terrified, recalling that the last time it led to a disaster. Fearing something might happen to the park, Kanade, accompanied by Chocolate, heads to the control room. On their way, they encounter all their friends. At the control room, Chocolate confesses her love over the park's PA system. Kanade responds that he cares for her too, but not in the way she wants. Chocolate accepts his affection. As they leave the control room, they discover it has started to snow. Everyone is surprised by the snow but soon starts playing, bringing all friends closer together, a little more united thanks to Kanade's decisions.